It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Get in the van. We're going for our Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, it always feels good on a Monday coming off of a Steelers win, at least for the fan base. And I'm sure your mentions are a lot more pleasant when that happens as well. So how are we doing this morning or afternoon?
I'm doing good. I'm a little tired. I had a long I kind of took the day off, but I just did a lot of like work adjacent things instead of just work. Did a bunch of like paperwork stuff, which is just, it's not my bag. It's not my thing. I'm pretty good at what I do. That's not what I do. There's good reasons why it's not what I do. So I actually feel like I worked like 4 hours today doing stuff that I'm not good at, and I feel much more tired than I usually do after spending all day, like a 12-hour day, doing my normal workload.
Gotcha. Okay. I do have to give a shout out before we dive into this because Brooklyn, who you guys know, sent me those pictures that are literally right over my right shoulder right now. One of our favorite members of the audience here. I told her that I would give her a shout out if her going against all of us and picking the Steelers to win this game happened. And it happened. So shout out to Brooklyn and her positivity, her optimism paid off this weekend with the Pittsburgh Steelers picking up a victory over the Indianapolis Colts. And I'll be honest, Alan, I know that you talked a lot on post game, which, by the way, done by yourself. Shout out to you for hanging in there and doing that. I know you talked a lot about your thoughts on it. The main thing that was flooding my mentions yesterday was people just talking about how do you get 6 turnovers and only win by 7. I mean, that is as dominant of a one possession win, I think, as you'll see, was never in question who was going to win that football game. People not taking in consideration garbage time drives me nuts. Again, I felt like the Colts never threatened to win that football game, especially in the second half, was never in jeopardy, was never in balance. And I just don't get why that's a takeaway that I see coming out of this one.
Yeah, I thought early on the Steelers offense was really struggling. The defense gave up, first touchdown, then a second drive, and things didn't look great. I thought the TJ Watt strip sack was the start of that change. And then the fact that the Steelers got a touchdown on both that drive and the following drive after the Peyton Wilson interception. I don't really think after that point the Colts really threatened to win that game. That was the first time all year they had to significantly play from behind, which I don't think they did very well. It really took Jonathan Taylor out of the game, and the Steelers were able to focus on just defending Daniel Jones and those receivers, and I thought they did a very good job of it. So, yeah, I don't like it. I wrote one version of the game story, and I never changed it. Like that doesn't happen in a game that's ever in doubt. So I mean, I feel good about that one all the way through. For the Steelers, I don't care what happens after a team goes down 17 with 2 minutes left. Like whatever. It was over at that
right.
point.
Yeah. And what a week for a guy like, I know that your morning rush really talked about it, but Alex Highsmith, who the fan base, for whatever reason, he had become a guy that, had people were talking about getting out of town. We want to see more Nick Herbig, less Alex Highsmith. Alex Highsmith, I think, going to have a strong case to be the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. I put out there, I didn't pay a bunch of attention to what was going around league wide yesterday. But I feel like him and Peyton Wilson have 2 pretty good cases to be the AFC Defensive Player of the Week coming from the same team. Was awesome to see him have that type of impact on a game. It's crazy what the Steelers pass rush can do when the quarterback has to hold the ball for more than 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, it still was a fairly quick time to throw for Daniel Jones. It was like 2.65, just a little bit slower than what Jordan Love had been. But I thought it was really important that they got him off his first read as much as they did. And really, if you look at a lot of those sacks, there's guys open. Like, go look at the highlights of the sacks and focus on the guys in the secondary. There are players there that Daniel Jones could have been hitting, and he just didn't quite have the time to find them to go through his progressions. It's partially about the coverage, but it's also just being a little bit more tight in certain areas and doing a couple things a little bit differently to just take away the easy button. I think that's mostly what the Steelers defense did in this game.
Yeah. And Kyle Dugger getting a game ball in this one, and I think rightly so, because not that you heard his name a bunch. That's exactly why he got a game ball, was because you didn't hear his name a bunch. For a guy to jump on a train, the moving train midweek, step in and play all but one snap in this one defensively and do a pretty nice job when there's been communication issues the entire season. Just to me, an unsung hero for the way things went yesterday, just because he's just a guy that buckled his strap, went out there and did his job, and wasn't somebody that you noticed in a bad way.
Yeah, I thought he was really good. I thought he played the run well, handled coverage, no miscommunications, no missed assignments. For the fact that you had 2 practices with the team and how many they've had all year, I thought that was notable. Also, I think a lot of credit goes to Terrell Austin in figuring out a way to get him into that defense and make those pieces work. Mike Tomlin said last night they didn't really know until Thursday that they weren't going to have Peppers. They later than that they weren't going to have Clark. That this was really going to have to be Kyle Dugger's game, and on a short time period, they put together a game plan that he could comprehend, that also worked. I thought Jalen Ramsey at safety was also an excellent decision. A lot of people came out of that Packers game breathing fire toward Darius Slay, and I think when you go back and rewatch it, Juan Thornhill was a bigger problem, and so he gets benched in a game where the Steelers have no safeties. That's such a gutsy call. Like if this game goes sideways and Dugger can't handle it and makes a bunch of mistakes, and then you got Juan Thornhill standing on the sideline the whole game, like that's gutsy, man. And they pulled it off and they did a nice job of it.
Obviously you got to tip your cap to Jalen Ramsey too, and I guess we can go there in a second, discussing, is this maybe just the best way to use him, or the way that they have to use him, I guess, going forward with what's available to them at safety. But we're not saying anything that hasn't already been said, and saying that they weren't getting what they needed to from the safety play with Juan Thornhill and Chuck Clark. But after you see Kyle Dugger come in and do that, like you're saying, off of 2 practices, is it maybe even more of an indictment than what we thought about the play that those guys were providing on the back end?
Yes and no. I mean, the Steelers obviously had to make some pretty significant accommodations for Dugger. They really changed what they did. But it worked. The big thing is, you can. I'll make a basketball analogy. Some basketball teams play the same defense all the time. If you played Jim Boeheim in Syracuse, you knew you were getting a 2-3 zone for all of 10 years. Maybe 20 years. You knew what you were getting. They ran it. That was their thing. You had to game plan for it. They were better at it than you were game planning for it, and it worked. There are other teams that are not that good at defense, but they have coaches that will coach a bunch of different stuff, and they'll try to match up, and they'll try to say, well, this defense would be best against what this team does, and we're going to change our defense all the time. We're just going to try to keep them off balance, keep them confused. And you never get to like a dominant defense that way, but you can have effective stretches. And like what the Steelers are doing is kind of going down that road right here, is where it's like you can make these changes to accommodate Kyle Dugger, and you're throwing stuff that Daniel Jones isn't used to seeing at him and wasn't expecting to see. And I think that's how you get a ball thrown directly at Peyton Wilson's face, right? Like that happens because he's not expecting that guy to be there. But there's only so many different defenses you can change to. And eventually, at some point, you have to be able to run your stuff when they know it's coming and still be able to execute it. This got them through this game. I'm not sure it's like some kind of magical cure-all that is going to fix everything that's wrong with the secondary going forward.
Okay, well, let's expand upon that. And I can work in this question here from Patrick Link from YouTube, because he said, what coverage scheme did the Steelers primarily use against the Colts? Do you think it can succeed going forward?
Well, it's an interesting answer. They ran a lot more cover 2 and other 2 safety coverages. They ran some quarters. They ran some cover 6. They ran some cover 2 invert. And that really, I felt like, kept the Colts off balance. Now, they had some success against the cover 2 early. But what it did was, this almost is a question that we need the whiteboard for. Where is it? The
Maybe I should have saved it.
deficiencies of cover 2 are farther down the field. That's just what I'll say. It's like you can beat cover 2, but you have to hold on to the ball longer to do it. Okay, yeah, you have to let guys get into deeper routes. And I think that is one of the things that they gave up some passes, but they also got some big plays because they got to the quarterback. That's a trade-off they were willing to make in this game. Cover 2 is also not very good against the run. So if you are not stopping Jonathan Taylor the way they did early, that's not going to be an option for you. And then they kind of got away from it late. They kind of got very passive in those garbage time moments and just went to some spot drop cover 3 and predictably got carved up, but they didn't care. They were just trading clock for yards at that point, and it didn't really matter. So like schematically, yeah, they kind of all those coverages, cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, which is just cover 2 on one side of the field and cover 4 on the other side of the field, and then cover 2 invert, which is I don't need to get into, but all of them have 2 safeties deep. The Steelers generally are a cover 1 or cover 3 team where you have 1 safety deep. So the big change was that Ramsey was at safety and they played more 2 deep safeties. I think 2-man is, I've been saying this for weeks, probably their best defense if they can stop the run out of it. But yeah, so that's the schematic change they made. I think some of that stuff they can try to keep doing, but they have to execute the zone. That has been the big issue. But I thought with Ramsey at safety and that alignment, they did it. They did not have big mistakes in zone coverage in this game. Credit to Joey Porter. I thought he played really well when they played in zone, which is not what he is best at. He had a couple penalties and he gave up a bunch of yards, but there were not big mistakes with wide open people. And he was really taken outside of his comfort zone a lot by the scheme that they're putting in to try to make the safeties fit. And I think like some people were critical of him after the game. I think that's missing a lot of context. Like I'm a very good going right back to the open of the show. You get somebody doing something they're not used to doing. That can be a recipe for disaster. And it wasn't like the world's greatest game from him, but I thought he showed up and didn't make any big mistakes. And I thought was really a positive force for him.
I saw a lot of Alec Pierce in this one, who DB gave very high praise to on Friday previewing this matchup, who has rounded into a much more well-rounded receiver than he was early in his career, where it was just kind of running straight down the field and getting open. They'll have him do a lot of different things now, and he was killing them with those deep outs early in this one, especially. But yeah, tip the cap to Joey Porter Jr., and it was nice to see him actually seal it with an interception, put a bow on it. Peyton Wilson, I thought, was fantastic in this one as well, and he's really started to stack weeks for himself. I thought Keanu Benton was really good. I thought a lot of guys on the defensive side obviously played really well when you played that game that they did. On the offensive side, wanted to get your perspective on where things went wrong. We thought maybe this would be a team that they would be able to move the ball against with much more ease than what it looked like. Jaylen Warren's least efficient day as a pro, which is funny because he also had his first multi-touchdown game as a pro. So it's funny how those things work. But for you, when you look at this offense, like why did things go the way that they did, do you think?
Sorry, Smitty, you sent that question to me right here, but I just couldn't hang on to it. They couldn't catch the ball. Like, I mean, that was the big problem.
The very first play, right? It started out immediately. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I think that was the big problem. I didn't think it was the greatest game from Broderick Jones. There were a couple negative plays there. I just thought like that's a good interior defensive line with Glover and Puckner, and I thought they kind of. I didn't really love the marriage of the situations to the play calls at times. I thought they got a little like predictable. And then this was also the first game they've really played like for a long time with a big lead. And I didn't think they did that very well, where like you get in these situations where you're like trying to milk clock, but you also don't want to just make the obvious run. And so you kind of get into this like situation where I think it's really easy to outthink yourself. And I kind of feel like they did that a little bit.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Actually, Jonathan Schroeder sent me something on Instagram that he wanted me to bring up about the offensive calling in this one. But we also got a question about Broderick, or thought about Broderick, that I think applies here as well. So I'll bring up the Broderick one first. Mike said, why is no one talking about how bad Broderick Jones was? Missed blocks, got bull rush, caused a sack on Rodgers, and gave up many hurries. I mean, I'll let my thought overall. I don't know that I noticed it a bunch. I know that you said you didn't think that he was great. Like, Rodgers in this one only got pressured 6 times in general. He, like, 3 of those were sacks, I think, because 2 of them were probably on him holding the ball, which, like, people see sack and they just immediately think offensive line, but a lot of those that Aaron has taken this year, I think, can be attributed to himself as well. But what was your thought on Broderick's performance yesterday? I know you said that he wasn't great just now, but
yeah, there were a couple like things that stood out to me. There was like a really bad screen pass rep. I didn't think he run block as well as he had been. I thought the pass blocking was about what I expect from him. They gave him some help. It wasn't necessarily like clean or pretty, but it was mostly effective. It's not like Rodgers was running for his life back there. I thought that he could have run blocked a little better. I think that was the area where they did not get a great push in the running game overall. And I think they've been running outside really effectively, and you didn't see that a lot in this game. And I thought when they did run outside, they ran better to the right than the left.
Yeah, for sure. In general, with the offense, though, like I said, Jonathan sent me something here. Said, appreciate all the work you guys are doing on the pod. Always great. Here's my thought this week. Look forward to hearing Victory Monday breakdown on all of it. I be off on this, but I think one of the main criticism that I have for Arthur Smith, especially the past few weeks, that I've noticed, is that he seems to try to get into his bag too often. I feel like sometimes he tries too hard to come up with something clever. When we just saw on Sunday, they were in a position to milk this one away. Why were we throwing on third down? Or do you think that could be more attributed to Aaron? When really just running a straightforward offense would probably produce better in the situation that they were in. With the positive result this week from the defense seemingly being simplified, would it be beneficial to see the offense also be more simplified in certain instances? If it's not the answer, how can they do better to capitalize and turn more points out from those 6 turnovers?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of that. That kind of overthinking things. I also think getting into his bag is like what makes Arthur Smith Arthur Smith. You're not going to get away from that. I like the unpredictability of it all. You just got to kind of take what comes with that. And that if you're going to buck the conventional wisdom all the time, when it doesn't work, you're going to look stupid. Like that's the way it goes. But also, when you don't have an offense that possesses overwhelming talent, I think bucking the conventional wisdom more often than not is the right idea. The Steelers lined up in like a 1st and goal situation with like a bunch of tight ends and fullbacks and made a very obvious handoff, and it went nowhere. And then the next play, they run like a little like nickel form or 11 personnel toss, and there goes Jalen Warren. It's like, yeah, when you look like you're doing one thing and you do the other, you're going to be much more effective when you don't have overwhelming talent. That does mean that you get into these situations where like the obvious thing is to do this, and then you kind of feel like you can't do it.
In terms of the points off turnovers, obviously, like I said, that's been a big point of emphasis, and people feeling like that's not obviously going to continue. But I don't know if there's like one thing to pinpoint though, right? Like, I mean, what was the average starting position of their drives? Anyway, do we know?
Yeah, I don't have their average right in front of me, but when they got those turnovers, they did get the 2 that were deep inside the Indy zone, the muffed punt and then the Peyton Wilson interception. But the Sawyer interception was in their territory. The Watt sack fumble was in their territory. And the other 2 were, in field goal range, but they were, and the game was over at that point anyway. Like, it didn't. After the final 2 turnovers, like they didn't really need to do anything with those anyway.
Not being super aggressive on offense.
Yeah. I didn't see. I didn't think specifically. I think they just got to have a couple more longer drives. I think they only had 2 drives over 8 plays, over 7 plays. I think I'd just like to see them string a couple more together regardless of where the drive started or how you get. I mean, you get the ball at your own 35. It doesn't. I mean, can just as easily get there from a kickoff. Like the fact that comes off of a fumble doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the funny thing about this is if you kind of looked at the way that the offense produced in this one, you look at like the efficiency on the ground, just the way that they were or weren't able to move the ball through the air, the number of drops, the points that they scored. Obviously, not looking at the defensive side there yet, I would have said there's no way they're winning this football game. However, when I asked you what the path to winning this football game was the other day, you said win the turnover margin by 2 or more and get a big play on special teams. I mean, you had that, 20 minutes of game action into this one? Something like that. I mean, you had it before half for sure. You had that happen. So, yeah, that's how you win that game, I guess.
Yeah, and I think like there's a lot of people saying like, oh, that isn't sustainable. Like you can't plan on getting those turnovers over the course of a season. And like, on one hand, you can't ever be sure you're going to get them because it does require, in general, the other team to make some kind of mistake, some kind of being a little bit too cavalier with the ball, some kind of tactical error, something that you have to take advantage of in order to come back with a turnover. But those happen in almost every game. And certain teams are just better at converting those opportunities to takeaways than others. And the Steelers have been one of those teams for a very long time. They are now, second in the league in turnovers? Look at where they finish every year. Like that's not an accident or a mistake or luck or random chance. Like they work very hard at that. And so you're not going to get here's the thing. I think this way of going about business, this idea that the Steelers have that the grass doesn't really matter, get the football, which we've talked about a lot on here. I think it makes for inconsistent results in the regular season. There are going to be days where the ball, just remember last year when they went on that incredible run where just the fumbles, like they forced 1 million fumbles and didn't recover any of them. Like there are going to be days where the ball doesn't bounce your way. There are going to be days where the opposing quarterback is just clinical with the football and you don't ever get those opportunities and you might get beat. On the other hand, you can't defend every blade of grass against Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen anyway. It's an impossible task. The only way to beat them is to get the football and give your offense more opportunities, whether that's a good chance or a bad one. So, like, I think the way they're going about this is correct, but you are going to see games where, I think a lot of things happened over the last 2 weeks other than them not getting turnovers. But there are going to be games like that where the other team just doesn't make enough mistakes or you don't the rare opportunities. Like, I mean, I know Slay dropped an interception in the Bengals game. I'm sure there were chances. There was a fumble on special teams in one of those that Steelers didn't recover as well. Like, if you have games where you don't take advantage of your opportunities, you just don't get very many of them, it might be hard for you to win those. But I still think that's the right way to approach the challenge of playing defense against modern NFL offenses.
Yeah, for as good as those predictions were for you, your bold predictions, I don't know if I could have been more wrong about any aspect of it. The Steelers losing in a blowout, Roman Wilson having a touchdown. Not only did that not happen, for whatever reason, he decided to try to.
He was trying really hard to
over everybody.
He was trying really hard to make your prediction true, Smitty. He was like, "I'm only going to get one pass here at this stage in the game. I've got to get in the end zone or else up and over I go." This is for you, Smitty.
I think Ben Skoronek's reaction was everybody's. He got caught on the ref's mic. For anybody that saw that, and then defensively, I had them forcing a fumble on Jonathan Taylor. 6 turnovers, not one of them was Jonathan Taylor. So I literally could not have been more wrong for my predictions this week. I know you're the one. I think that if we do a punishment for how wrong the Steelers now crew was, we'll get to pick it because you were the least wrong of us. I mean, I'm not getting my nipples pierced, but I based off how bad my bold predictions were.
And I was the closest on the score. Yeah. Not that any of us were close, but I was the closest.
Yeah, something should happen to me. I deserve some type of punishment for how wrong I was. I'm not going to do the the piercing of the nipples, but something should probably happen to me that I don't want to have happen.
And you picked the bigger loss than DB, right?
The biggest margin that I've ever predicted against the Steelers.
Maybe
for the
Steelers. Maybe as punishment, you should have to shave your normal facial hair into a hideous mustache.
Done. All right, there it is. I'll take care of that right away for you. No, so we did a trick or treat got pushed back here because it was supposed to be last Thursday. It got moved to Saturday because of the weather. Like the third kid that I had was like, "Are you a police officer?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Oh, so you're a fireman then?" I was like, "No." I just like that. That's like the go-to for just the mustache.
Are you Mike Ditka?
But
are you related to Mike Ditka?
I got, somebody said Artie Smith, so I know that was a thing when we hired Artie that I went to just the mustache as well. But yeah, whatever people want to roll with. It's not necessarily my thing. I just do it every November. So
I just like giving you a hard
time. Great timing. I appreciate it. Let's get to a couple more questions that we got sent here. This one was to you from FX Tony. When I searched your name to send you this message, first result that popped up was Shedeur Sanders. So I don't know if he sent it to both of you guys. We'll see if Shedeur ever.
I'd be interested to hear what Shedeur had to say.
Can you please explain why the Eccles punt recovery was not a touchdown? Don't understand the rule. Didn't know that was a thing. Also, when they show the coaches in the box with the field and the TV, what kind of notes do you think that they're taking? Tony from Louisville, Kentucky here. Thanks for all the great content. Go Steelers.
Yeah, so I mean, basically the muffed punt is a very arcane rule that's been there for a very long time. You used to be able to advance a kick all the time. It used to be like a live ball, like a kickoff. Mm-hmm. And when they changed the rule to go to what we sort of currently see as a punt, that was just one of the things that kind of got crammed in there that, I guess made sense at the time that they've just never taken out. I think part of it is that they want to minimize the penalty. One of the reasons they don't change it is that it minimizes the penalty for trying to catch the ball and return the kick. If you're in traffic and you catch the ball and you try to catch the ball and you don't catch it, it minimizes the penalty. Mm-hmm. So that like the idea is fewer teams will fair catch it. I think that's why they haven't changed it. As for like what the coaches are making notes of in the coaches box, man, I don't have a clue. Like, I mean, it could be literally anything. I know one of the things that you'll see guys write in certain stadiums, the coaches boxes are either next to each other or they're next to the press box on one side. And so they don't want to say things out loud. They, if they have if they're like, oh my gosh, every running play, number 75 has a tell, get on them. They don't want to do that because then, the other coaching box next door will be like, hey, tell 75 to knock it off. And so a lot of times they will like kind of pass notes to each other, or, you'll see guys use the iPads that they have to kind of, hey, like, look at this, what do you think? As opposed to just having conversations. Those boxes are usually pretty quiet during a game. So it could be writing literally anything, but if you see somebody scribbling something down on a piece of paper, my guess is that's why.
I assume that they were just like writing back and forth to each other. Hey, did you see what they were talking about in the last Steelers afternoon drive? Hey, did you subscribe to Steelers Afternoon Drive and leave them a 5-star review on all your listening platforms?
Solo block TJ Watt.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would be interested in asking them that question and hearing. Oh, you wouldn't get the actual answer, so I guess what's the what's the point? Unless it's somebody that's no longer doing it, like used to be in one of those roles, I guess, and maybe like, hey, what type of stuff used to go on there? I don't know. All right, we'll get to one more here because I know there's still a couple that were out there. This one's actually been sitting out there for a few days, though. It's just hard to do on a Friday when we do the preview and predictions. But this one's from Bill Kerr in Boardman, Ohio. Hey, Alan, love the content, especially the morning rush and afternoon drive. You provide reason-informed and measured content. Your discussion on the afternoon drive mentioned how Tomlin opened today's press conference, talked about the offense needing to score, and then obviously it goes back to last week, needing to score touchdowns instead of settling for field goals. It's an obvious deflection. I'd be tempted if I was there to ask if he said that because the offense needs to put up 35-plus points to overcome the defense's inability to stop the opposing team's offense. Since no one typically asks those kinds of pointed questions, I assume that no good can come from it. I'd love for you to discuss in a future show how you take that, how media members have to limit the questions, and why. Again, love the show.
Yeah, it's something I talk about fairly often. The press conference setting is an interesting one. You probably are not going to get an answer to most of your most pointed questions. And mostly the point of a press conference is to get an answer that you can use to write a story. Sometimes that answer is bad and dumb, not just speaking about Mike Tomlin, but my history of covering coaches. Sure. And I think a lot of people's natural inclination is say, like, well, why do you just let them get away with saying something bad or dumb or wrong or whatever? And, I think what people miss is that that's not the point of the press conference. The point of the press conference is to get that information to then pass it along. If the coach says something bad or dumb, I'm just going to go write it and make him look bad or dumb. Like that or wrong. Like that's if Mike Tomlin sits down and says, there's aliens in the Mon River. They landed there last night. They've been watching our practice since Tuesday. I mean, I might have a factual follow-up question, but I'm not gonna be like, no, they didn't, you dumbass. Like that's not the way. Like, I may be like, why do you think this? How do you know? Can the aliens tell me what's going on at practice? But like if someone in a press conference presents something as fact, so a few weeks ago, Tomlin says the reason that they they lost the Bengals, basically the defense gave up as much as they did, was they couldn't stop the run. I thought that was wrong. I thought it was wrong as soon as he said it. I still think it's wrong now. I think it was proven to be wrong the following week. But there's no benefit to me to point that out to him in that setting. What am I going to get in response? I'm not going to get more words that help me write my story. I'm just going to get an angry coach that does nothing to help anyone. So it's much better for me to just write, Tomlin thinks it's all the running game, even though all of us can see what really happened. And then the following week, right, Tomlin was wrong about that. Like that's the way to go about that from my standpoint. That, I mean, I'm never afraid of asking a pointed question, but I'm not asking a question that I don't need the response to. And if I know I'm not going to get one, it's a pretty minimal benefit to me.
Oh, hey, I wanted to give you a shout out before we got off of here because I thought you said something that was a really good take regarding Terrell Austin and secondaries where maybe they're depleted sometimes. The one thing that I think Terrell Austin has done a nice job of in his tenure that has been maybe under talked about other than when you brought it up was maximizing limited talent. And I think, we saw that come to fruition, obviously, in 2022 against Tampa. And with the amount of secondary players that they had out on Sunday, I think, obviously you have Jalen Ramsey, you have good players at your disposal, but a limited number of them. And they obviously had the right game plan to make up for what they had at their disposal. So, I don't know. It was really on my mind over the weekend watching that game, thinking about, hey, I think Terrell Austin does deserve a little bit of a tip of the cap for a secondary that came into this one pretty depleted.
Yeah, I still think it's okay to say he hasn't done a good enough job overall.
Absolutely,
you look at the talent in the secondary and say they should be better than they've been. But that was a nice job. That was a nice job from Mike Tomlin. It was a nice job from Terrell Austin. Nice job from Ramsey and Dugger being put into uncomfortable, and Porter being put into uncomfortable positions and performing. I I think those guys deserve a lot of credit. And then we'll see if they can, find a way. I was on Final Word last night, and one of the questions was, what are these Steelers? And I said, I don't think we know yet. And it doesn't, nobody cares at the end of the year what you are on November 2nd, November 3rd. Like, that story is going to be written over the next 2 months. And, I think we all remember last season's ending was rather unpleasant. I'm certain that everyone involved would sign up for, hey, man, this team's going to struggle a lot throughout the course of this year to figure out how to make best use of all these parts they got, but they'll figure it out by the end of the year and be playing their best ball in January. I think the other part that point home for me this weekend was the 2005 team being there. I don't know how much I know you said that that's sort of the beginning of your Steelers fandom, but like that team was down and out in the middle of that season. They lost 3 games in a row from November to December and got themselves to 7-5 and basically needed to win out to get into the playoffs before they really came together and figured it out. Does anybody care or remember how everybody felt on December 4th? Like, it's about the journey and getting to the end. And man, like I think the reaction of the last 2 weeks has been an overreaction, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good stuff. Much more to talk about the rest of this week, and obviously we'll turn the page and start talking about I guess we should mention the roster stuff real quick that we didn't at the beginning. Beanie Bishop released from the practice squad, as well as MVS going to be signing. Hasn't officially happened yet, I guess, but that is going to be the practice squad. You hypothesize that could potentially be the case, that it would be practice squad edition. Got to be honest, maybe you can talk me into the understanding of why it would be Beanie Bishop as the guy released from the practice squad to make the space. Don't get it on the surface, but I knew that they were going to have to make a spot. I don't know.
First glance feels like maybe that was a request. I don't know that, but like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. And the guy started 6 games for him last year. There's way worse players on that practice squad. So absolutely. Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah. Okay. That would make sense then. And then we'll see if there's another edition. Hey, tomorrow's show could write itself for us before we get here to record the afternoon drive with the NFL deadline looming at 4 p.m. tomorrow. So we'll see if we get any action before then. But Alan, until then, tell the people they can find you.
Saunders _PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now sites account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words. I got a column about how the pass defense let the pass rush do its job. There's good stuff from the rest of the gang up there too. All the trade deadline rumors keep coming in. So you want to keep that page in your bookmarks for the next 24 hours or so. Sign up for SN Plus and you get all the best content from me, DB, Brandon, the rest of the Steelers Now team. Already thinking about my notes from the road column from LA. I've got a good idea in mind for the sort of non-football portion of that. Shout out, got a new one here. Ed Huey, Hughey, Ed Huey from Austin, Texas. So always love the out of town shout outs. I don't know if that's a little
Hughey. Is that what you said?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So appreciate you, Ed, for joining and coming along with us every week. And anyone
Austin, one of my favorite Blake Shelton songs, by the way.
There you go. Anyone can subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel as we continue to grow this show and all the rest of our shows to a bigger and bigger audience. We're at 16,938 subscribers. Carrie Davis. I feel like we just had this one. We just had this one. Carrie Davis, the fullback, is where I'm going here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said Jalen Samuels. I don't know how many times I've said Terrell Edmonds when he came back. It's got
and we've talked about Michael Walker being the linebacker is a very good answer here. Stephen Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
I think was 38. Yeah. Tim Worley, way back in my youth.
We appreciate you guys getting us to this number. Let's quit landing on the 38, please. Let's just go all the way to 17K by tomorrow and have that be the case. So Yeah. But either way, if you are listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing over on TikTok. Then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH, Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.